Okay, just sent.
All right, we will give folks a moment to filter on in here, and then we'll get into an update on the next couple of waves of snow that'll be pushing across the area as we get into tomorrow morning, and then more snow Friday evening, Friday night, Saturday. It's going to be a busy couple of days here across the region, and that we're going to be seeing multiple rounds of impactful accumulated snow potential.
Absolutely, Brett. I would say Northeastern Ohio, enjoy this break. You guys have had plenty of lake effect to deal with over the past 24 hours. So I'm at least happy to see that the radar is clear, at least for the next 12 hours up there.
Yeah, our next really true wave of snow is all the way back out in western portions of Illinois. It's going to be slowly pushing through Illinois, Indiana, into parts of Ohio. Eventually, as we get into tomorrow morning, especially, we'll go over to the simulated radar here as people continue to filter on in and just give you an idea of how this progresses out to the west tonight. We're just going to be tracking it, and I think really the big thing to watch for western Ohio is going to be how well can this really hold together throughout the overnight hours and into the pre-dawn hours when we can start to see this push towards the area.
Absolutely. And I would also say for your area, Dayton, Columbus, locations south of I-70, we will need to keep an eye on increasing temperatures in addition to increasing winds as we get later on into the morning hours. So as Brett shows that simulated radar from west to east, we'll discuss more of those risks with temperatures, but just something to watch as this system progresses. That is our area of greatest uncertainty in terms of impacts for both waves of snow here as we get into Friday.
Yep, absolutely. So we'll get into it here, guys. Again, we're looking at this activity out to the west. This is wave number 1, but it's not going to be the only wave. In fact, this is probably the weaker of the 2 or 3 waves that we're going to be tracking here over the next 36 to 48 hours or so. And I think that this first wave can put down some light accumulations, but it's going to be the development along the main front as we work into tomorrow afternoon. We'll have the ability to pack a little bit more of a punch. But as John mentioned, then we have to deal with some temperature concerns with warming temperatures the further south that you go across the state. As cold as it is now, tomorrow afternoon, we actually will warm up a bit, warm up above freezing, and will allow for some melting of the snow that can fall tomorrow morning across the southern portion of the state of Ohio. So let's look at the simulated radar here, guys. I have the simulated snow and the simulated radar in terms of what we expect the snow to do here on the left. And then on the right, I have wind gusts. And I want to show the wind gusts because probably as we go throughout the morning, we're going to be seeing this wind increase in intensity. And as that happens, we can deal with some lower visibilities, probably some blowing snow concerns. And wind is probably something that we continue to deal with as an issue that will make snow more impactful tomorrow and probably into Saturday as well.
Absolutely. And when you're dealing with a system that has multiple waves and that continues to have those risks for 25, 30 mile per hour plus, which I would say overall, hourly automated data doing well at picking up on, that reduction in visibilities is going to be key for hazardous travel. And it's also going to be something to consider as we get into especially that second wave. Now, notice the first wave here as that system moves into eastern Kentucky, western Ohio. We do think that it can break apart a little bit as it gets east of I-65 and closer to that Indiana-Ohio border. I still think that we need to watch out for coating risks with that first wave, but because of the intensity of the gusts at the surface and actually even, Brett, the winds that are up where the airplanes fly, that's going to help break apart that first wave a little bit more. Even so, it's that next wave that you can see here that starts to roll in 11 a.m., 12 p.m., 1 p.m. Eastern timeframe. Look at those gusts maximized where that heavier band sits towards Dayton and Cincinnati area. That is definitely going to be a concern for visibilities. And we do favor pavement impacts for those areas here as well.
Yeah, if we take a look just real quick at the temperatures at this time, you can certainly see, especially the northern portion of this band. Along and north of Dayton, Columbus, Lima, up towards Toledo and Cleveland, temperatures are going to be well below freezing initially as this moves through. It's as we work further into the afternoon, really for the southern third of Ohio and into Kentucky, where temperatures are going to rise above freezing. Where you see these green colors, that's indicating above freezing temperatures. The blue colors are going to indicate below freezing temperatures. And so if you're along and kind of north of this line, especially here, temperatures are going to stay more consistently below freezing to increase and extend the impacts as we go throughout tomorrow afternoon. And I think that as this moves through, there's certainly the potential for some embedded heavier pulses of snow. I don't think that it's just a light broken up snow. I do think that as this moves through, there's the potential for some heavier bursts in here. And as that happens, and I think this is important to keep in mind, school dismissal for Ohio, Northern Kentucky here, as this moves through 3, 4, 5 a.m. And then, of course, rush hour. It's coming in at a time that could cause some travel issues just from a timing standpoint. I do want to pull up the visibility as well. And I want to click around a little bit here because you can see a couple of pockets, less than a mile visibility as some of these snow showers come through. It's not necessarily going to be throughout the duration of the snow, but at times certainly could have some lower visibilities, which can increase some of the travel concerns.
Absolutely. And a great point that you bring up, Brett, south of I-70 corridor, some of these locations, I do think that as a result of those heavier snowbursts, which I think can extend as far south as there, even though you're dealing with those temperatures that can be just above freezing into the mid 30s, we're coming from colder temperatures. The pavement is coming from being colder. So we still can see impacts, heavier rates overcoming some of those warmer temperatures and allowing for some slick spots. In terms of overachievement, I do think Dayton, Columbus, and locations just to the north of the I-70 corridor, that's kind of the sweet spot. You can even see where the visibility gets a little bit darker there, less than a mile, less than half a mile. That would be the zone of overachievement right there in the red circle that I think we need to keep a close eye on. Yeah, especially 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m. as it pushes from west to east. Those rates easily at times can exceed a quarter of an inch per hour, even half an inch per hour, and get into those heavier ranges here.
Which, as I mentioned earlier, this is a more tricky time frame from a school dismissal perspective. Temperatures are going to be below freezing in this red circled area. You've got some heavier snowfall rates, you've got some lower visibility, and schools are going to be getting out right in this time frame. And so certainly some travel concerns, some travel issues across northwestern portions of Ohio as we get into tomorrow afternoon for school dismissal and then eventually rush hour traffic.
Absolutely. And Brett brings up another excellent point as well with the timing of this. Even as we start to see this activity shift from west to east, starting to get more into eastern Ohio here, temperatures are going to start to drop again behind this. So if you have evening activities, basketball, any type of post-school or event, that is something that we'll need to keep an eye on here for lingering wet pavement. I think that can definitely be a refreeze concern as well as we get into Friday evening into early Saturday morning.
Yep. Now, in terms of snowfall totals, just to highlight this for you, you can certainly see the further south and east you go, the lighter the activity is going to be with this particular wave. Now, there's another one we're going to talk about here in a little bit for Friday night that I think could pack a little bit more of a punch for the southern portion of Ohio and even into northern and eastern portions of Kentucky. But in terms of this wave tomorrow afternoon, I think, again, it's going to be northwestern portions of Ohio that have the higher chance for 1 to locally 2 inches of snow. Click up here near Cleveland, you can see some pockets of a half an inch to an inch of snow. But the further south you go, kind of south of the I-70 corridor, it's where things could be a little bit lighter, a combination of, as we mentioned, maybe that more intense band of snow being across northwestern portions of the state, and also some of the concerns with more marginal temperatures as we go throughout tomorrow afternoon. But this gives you a look at this main wave of snow as we work into the midday to afternoon hours tomorrow.
Absolutely. And melting, definitely a concern south of I-70, but this is a perfect system and scenario, if you will. We'll really have to keep an eye on nowcast potential and keeping you guys posted as we track this wave as it pushes from west to the east. Brett's pulling up our Pavecast tool, which I think is doing a great job at showing that gap in coverage where the temperatures actually increase above freezing for pavement. And you can see that melt snow icon. That's indicating that even with the snowfall rates, you can still see some slushy accumulations develop, but it's melting just given that warmer pavement. We get closer to 5 to 6 as temperatures begin to drop back down. That's where those pavement impacts are going to be far more likely as we get into the evening hours.
Yeah, and if we go further down to the south, let's go down just south of Dayton here to give an idea of what things look like with temperatures that are more above freezing. And you can see, rather than
Absolutely.
just snow all the way through, you actually are starting to get some of just the wet road conditions in. Pavement temperatures are much warmer down here as we go throughout the afternoon. And so your impacts are going to be less. You're going to have more wet roads than snow-covered roads tomorrow afternoon. This particular station here just south of Dayton actually trying to mix in some rain. A little bit more skeptical on that, John. I think maybe it's going to be more snow than rain, but could see some raindrops mix in with temperatures getting up into the mid-30s here.
Absolutely. It would be right on the southern edge. And even if you see some of those snow flurries initially during the afternoon, they're going to be more of the lighter variety. So you'll hardly see them. Or if it's rain or liquid, it's going to be very light, just given you're on the opposite side of the system where the better moisture's at. You're also very windy. So that's why we wouldn't be as concerned as much with your intensity compared to locations further to the north. Now that does change if you're in southern Ohio here as we get into the Friday evening, Saturday morning time frame, as there is another system that has started to increase in model coverage here. As you can see that, Brett, let's dive into this. What's your takeaways here with this system as it pushes west to east on Saturday morning?
Yeah, so if we zoom out here, we've got our big low pressure system up here well to the north across parts of the upper peninsula of Michigan, really. And what starts to happen is you've got a big cold front that extends all the way down through here, and kind of north and east of this cold front, what we start to see is a little bit more organization of the snow potential, a little bit of some banding. We've got some frontogenesis is what we call it, which is the development of a front in here, and it can lead to some more intense snowfall rates for a time as we go throughout Friday evening and Friday night into Saturday morning across eastern and southern portions of Ohio and even into eastern Kentucky. So I'd be on the lookout Friday night, Columbus, Lexington, Charleston, West Virginia, Canton, Youngstown for a steadier, maybe more pronounced snow at times before this works further off to the east and we deal with more of the scattered snow shower and snow squall activity across the state of Ohio and in northern Kentucky as we work throughout Saturday afternoon.
Absolutely. And what we have seen frequently with some of these weaker systems, northeastern Ohio, that lake effect snow belt, winds will start to become a little bit more favorable for lake enhancement as we get further into Saturday as well. So we may need to keep an eye on increasing some totals locally for those locations north of Youngstown, east of Cleveland, at least in terms of some streaks that we can see some heavier rates here. But in terms of our current thinking with snowfall totals maps at this time, given that this particular band, if you will, is going to set up for an extended duration, more southeast of Columbus into eastern Kentucky here, West Virginia. And I also do think that given that the system is approaching, Brett, those higher elevations and mountains, that actually can help reinforce some of the moisture on that western side and allow for some overachievement here. So I would say in general, confidence is still a little bit lower in this totals map. We're going to have to fine tune this as we get into tomorrow, but definitely leaning a little bit more aggressive here in that 1 to 2 zone, just given some of those factors that we have discussed.
Yeah, and I would say that I've seen these types of setups before. If there's ever a tendency with these, it is that they can sometimes overachieve a little bit across eastern Kentucky and towards the mountainous regions in West Virginia, and even some of those hillier regions and southern portions of Ohio. So would not completely shock me to see a band in that 1 to 2 inch area that could overachieve a little bit. It's relatively common with these types of systems in this portion of the Ohio Valley.
Absolutely. And I think in addition to those areas as well, again, Akron, Cleveland, your northeastern lake effect belt along that I-80, I-90 corridor, that will be a zone that I will particularly be watching closely as we get into tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon to increase and add a locally heavier area there as well. You can already see across portions of Michigan, the reason we have that 1 to 2 zone there really is because as that low pressure system pushes more from west to east, those winds start to turn back around more to the northwest and west. So definitely an area that we will need to reconsider in terms of some locally heavier totals.
Yep, absolutely. I don't see any questions right now. If any of you have some questions that you want to ask, feel free to throw it into the chat. We'd be happy to answer those real quickly. Of course, as always, for more specific details for your precise location, we always encourage you to reach out on the chat. We're always there to assist, to help. This is just giving a little bit more of a generalized regional view of how we expect this storm system to evolve, and really the next one as well over the next 48 hours or so.
Absolutely. Yep. So if anybody has any questions, this is the time to ask. For those of you that may not have seen this before, so our purpose with live streams is this is more of a regional or area-wide overview as we look ahead over the next 24, 36 hours. Obviously, if you have business operational decisions, please use the chat feature to reach out and discuss this. We're happy to do that as well, but this is also a perfect time to discuss with us the forecast here.
All right. Well, John, I'm not seeing any right now. I'll give another moment to see if anybody wants to ask anything. Regardless, I really appreciate all of you all for taking some time out of your Thursday evening to hop on and join us with some more details about this forecast ahead. It's going to be a busy pattern as we work over the next several days. A lot of these little chances of snow. I don't really see any big storm systems in the card for the time being. There's one we need to watch in about 8 or 9 days or so that has been waffling back and forth on model data a little bit on whether it wants to become a big storm or not. But this is very much a pattern that favors a lot of these pesky light events. And for the most part, throughout the back half of January, I think that's probably going to be the theme.
Absolutely. And I think the notable event more so than precip next week is Tuesday morning temperatures hit into the single digits across much of Ohio, eastern Kentucky, southeastern Michigan. Those would be the areas where we need to keep a close eye on temperatures and even wind chills. Brett, I was basing that off of the blend. I'm not sure how the Euro operational is seeing it compared to yesterday, but I know it's got those pink areas that start at least Monday morning to get to the southeast, and then as we get towards Tuesday, definitely would think we can see some of that cold air maybe get displaced further south.
Yeah, you can see that further south into Tuesday morning, some sub-zero temperatures showing up here. And guys, I think that the next shot of cold air on the 26th of the month could even be colder than this based off some of the indications that I'm seeing. So a lot of cold air that we're going to be dealing with over the back half of January. A huge difference from how we started the month was spring-like for a couple of days. We had some 60s at times, especially across the lower Ohio Valley. So a big change in here compared to where we have been for the first part of this month.
Absolutely. Brett, I see your question here. So for Middletown, Ohio, I would say the first wave that you're seeing is likely going to be fairly light in nature. I think it can break apart as it pushes from west to east. I would keep an eye on a 0.25, maybe 0.3, 0.4 coating risks to start. It's really that next round of snow that starts to work in later in the afternoon. You're going to be battling warmer temperatures, but if we can get some of those heavier rates to work down, I think you can see at least up to another quarter to half inch of slushy brief accumulations that can stick on pavement as well, in addition to those wind gusts of 30 miles per hour plus that can reduce visibilities.
Yep, for sure. All right, guys. I think that's all that we have for now. Again, really appreciate all of you all for hopping on. We hope that you have a fantastic evening. Be sure to be on the lookout for more updates to come as we work over the next few days. I'm sure you're going to be getting a lot of nowcasts from us for updates on accumulating snow potential. We appreciate your support. We hope you have a fantastic rest of your evening.